Stugotz, some more information has come out at that video of Yusuf Nurkic coming over a young man who was holding a phone, and Nurkic, in a very threatening fashion, he's 7 feet tall, and he was unhappy, took the phone and threw it, and we didn't have context, we didn't have the details, and it's become more and more clear during the pandemic that athletes aren't here anymore for you dehumanizing them, however it is that you'd like to dehumanize them, and some of the reporting around this suggests, even as Nurkic is fined $40,000, because you can't do that. You can't grab a customer's phone and throw it, but the kid deserved it based on what it is that he was saying about his grandmother, and Nurkic recently lost his grandmother to COVID. So it was an especially personal thing that feels less contrived than this Masvidal Covington thing talking about my kids. And
Right.
and I'm not even saying that that's contrived. I'm saying Nurkic isn't going to be insulted like that by you. He doesn't care what your sports rules are.
He could simply walk up to the kid and have that conversation, which is not what he did. He grabbed his phone, he threw it into the stands. I'm with you. Like, it was deserved. It's certainly a conversation was warranted, all right? And Nurkic has every right to be upset about what it is the kid had to say, but you can't do that to your customer base. Like, everyone knows that. You just can't do it.
Am I the only one who thought Nurkic got off light? Look, the kid said something awful, disgusting. He deserves to be banned from ever going to an NBA event again. Whatever you want to do to punish the kid, I'm for. But what we cannot ever have are athletes, particularly NBA athletes, crossing the line between a verbal confrontation and a physical confrontation. Once there's touching involved, first and foremost, it's a safety issue for the player. You don't know what this guy has on him, or what he's capable of doing, or what mental state he's in. We do it to protect the players first and foremost. Then to protect them from the PR, the optic thing about, like, hey, like, this big 7-foot guy takes this puny kid's cell phone and, like, crushes it in his hands and little shards fall to the ground. Like, that's not a good look for us as a league either way. So I thought Nurkic should have been suspended for sure. Once you cross that line of physical, whether it's with a referee or with a fan, we're in a different world now. Now, would I say it would have been worth eating the suspension to do that to that kid? Absolutely. As a, if I were in the front office of the Blazers, I'd say, hey, man, yeah, good on you. If I could, I'd cover your fine too. But the reality is, he can't do that. That should be unequivocal. And David Stern would never allow that to happen. To me, this is another example. Adam Silver is just not strong enough in some of these cases. He's almost too pro player, even when that is, in its essence, anti-player. Because, again, it's not about hurting the kids' feelings. It's about the safety of the players.
I think everyone thought it was ridiculous when it happened, but didn't Conor McGregor get arrested for destroying someone's phone? Like, they were taking pictures of him outside of Live or something, and he stomped on it, and they arrested him for it. Not that he should get arrested, but it was ridiculous.
Billy, that's a great point, because Nurkic could have been the guy could press charges.
Oh, it could have escalated, too. There are all sorts of bad things that can happen, and one of the reasons that I want your viewpoint on this is because I don't hear a lot of people covering the NBA the way that you do. Ethan Strauss does a good job of this, but you have noticed that Adam Silver, as a leader, unlike Stern, who was a dictator, sort of realizes, oh, yeah, LeBron runs this league and the players have power and they should have power. And instead of giving a couple power like I did with Bird and Magic, they all need to have power. And now there's load management, and now he's soft on players. And now they've got a customer problem because Adam Silver is behaving like he's an administrative assistant for the players. And he does a lot of protecting of the players.
I mean, it's protecting of the players, but ultimately it ends up being at their detriment, right? You mentioned Ethan Strauss, and Ethan Strauss talks a lot about, the capitulations the league has made towards the players about things like media availability. Because what they don't understand, like, in a short-term thing, the player's like, I don't want to deal with media guys in my locker room, and that's it. It's like,
Stugotz, so you know, reporters, Adam Silver agrees with the players, get the reporters out of the locker room. That access should be gone in the Zoom age of the pandemic, and the media doesn't like it at all, and Adam Silver is defending it, and he's doing it because the players don't want media in the locker room.
And so there's a place where if you're short-sighted, you say, yeah, we don't like it, so they took away the thing we don't like. Problem solved. But the long term is this game grows because of stories, right? Not because of transactions, because of stories, because people feel a connection to who these people are and know their stories. Those stories are told by reporters who have to develop relationships with people. It is impossible to have a relationship with a player if all your interactions are on Zoom. I think it was my buddy Vinny Goodwill, who writes for Yahoo, who says, how many times have you been interviewing a guy at his locker and then you turn off the recorder and say, okay, so you said this, what does this mean? Right? Because they're going to say something on the record, but I want to present your thoughts as you see them. I don't want to misinterpret them. How many times have there been off-the-record conversations that happen when a guy didn't even have the recorder out? Just go and you shoot the shit with the guy at his locker, and you learn things, and their story gets told much richer.
Oh, I'm telling you, we are moving into an age of brand management with content, though, is going to make the story the way that Draymond Green wishes to present it to you. It may or may not be the truth, but he's going to have access to all of the platforms himself, where he's not going to go anywhere else.
It's not a story I'm interested in.
To tell his story. Well, you might not be interested in that one, but the contaminant that Amin is talking about here, the audience might not care. Who cares whether reporters are in the locker room or not?
Right.
But what you've seen with these information guys is management is manipulating. The relationship isn't with the players. When Damian Lillard has a relationship with a reporter, you know about it because that reporter is giving you actual insights to truth about Damian Lillard that are clearly coming from Damian Lillard. But a lot of the information that you're getting gets distorted because right now the players want that back. I mean, they want the power back of, why do I have to feed the content machine without feeding myself? I'm going to take care of me here. It's why Andre Iguodala and all these guys are getting into the podcast business.
But oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I do think that this machine is getting fed. I just think it's getting fed in a different way. So a lot of the clips that I see that go viral of NBA players telling their stories, they're most often on podcasts that are hosted by other players. And so I think the TikTok generation, the social generation, is very good at these stories. There's just one problem. Young people don't watch television. They don't sit down and watch games for 2.5 hours. It's just not in the same way that the older customers do. And so if newspapers and online publications and places where people 35 and older get their information are not being fed, they probably won't watch the product as much, therefore won't watch it on television. But I actually think in some ways a lot more gets revealed now. Like I see a lot of clips and a lot of people that are telling stories in an organic way because they feel comfortable around their friends. Like I saw a clip yesterday of Kirk Cousins telling a very honest story about how his career has gone, but to Adam Thielen, who's been his teammate for several years, on his podcast. Like, so these stories are getting told. It's just in a different way that doesn't reach the customer that watches television.
But the issue is, that's one story on one podcast. For most of these guys, they say, I went on as a guest with all the smoke, and then I told this story, or told that story, told 3 stories. A lot of times, these are like career retrospectives. We're not talking about the real time that's happening, and ultimately, that storytelling is requisite, right? In order for us to feel an attachment and connection, as particularly for the people who drive the stuff that make us money. TikTok does not make the league money. Instagram does not make the league money. I've talked about this before. You know, I do a radio show on NBA radio, and I had a caller come in and said, I listen to you guys every day. I watch every morning I wake up, I go on YouTube, I watch all the highlights of all the games from earlier. I go on Twitter. I follow all the news breakers. I'm up to date on the stuff. I read all the articles. I read Zach Lowe's top 10 things I like and don't like. I do this. I do that. He said, I haven't watched a game in 4 years. And I said, this guy, if I didn't say that last line, I would describe him as the ultimate consumer. He's looking for our product everywhere he can. But the problem is, all the places he consumes are the places where we don't make a dime. And so the NBA, to make up for ratings that have been sagging, they like to point to, look at our social numbers. We're the most social media popular thing out there, more than NFL, more than hockey, more than baseball. But the difference is people watch the NFL. They consume the NFL where the NFL makes money. Whereas the NBA, it is a shrinking pot of money where people are consuming.
What does Adam Silver do that's fan-friendly, though? Because, listen, it's cool that he's with the players. He's got their back. It's good leadership. I'm certain they love him. They swear by him. But,
I'm not sure it's good leadership, Stugotz.
Well, the load management is terrible. Terrible.
Adam Silver, let's do this here because you've got Amin basically longing for the time of a dictator. David Stern was he was not in any way progressive, and he was very much in charge. He, unlike Goodell, didn't feel like he was working for the owners.
They work for him.
He felt like the boss of the owners. And now the owners kind of feel like they're the players. And it kind of feels like Adam Silver works for them. And in that, as you need to get tomorrow's young people and your old people are getting detached from whatever it is. The social justice stuff, I don't like all these threes. What about the game that I loved in the paint? This is too fast. Whatever it is that's might pull older people away from the watching of the games. This requires Adam Silver's leadership.
Right.
Like, it requires his vision. He found another pocket of gold. He led the NFL on gambling. Let's go get the gambling money. But when you stop and think about these TV deals, they're okay now. But if people stop watching these games, Stugotz, they're making billions of dollars as being the programming that people can't miss. And you can't make the games not matter. You can't make the games, hey, I don't know whether I'm going to see James Harden or Joel Embiid this time.
Well, I had that frustration recently where I went to the American Airlines Arena for the Heat-Sixers game expecting to see the Heat versus Embiid and Harden decided not to play. And then last game, they're in Philadelphia, and Embiid and Harden decide not to play.
The FTX Arena, that's a fun.
I'm sorry about
There
that.
are also a ton of kids there, right? Like, that ruins the whole experience.
Yeah, there were
It's
a
also
ton of
not the
kids
Spectrum
there.
anymore.
But it's just it's terrible. Like, you're going to a game, you pay for the tickets, and you have to guess who's going to be available that night. That's not good, I mean. Play basketball. It's 82 goddamn games.
Wow.
I love
load management.
Roy, that was such a tight window that you hit him with. It's not the Spectrum anymore either. It's such
Did I say the Spectrum?
No, you didn't say the original.
Okay. I put $1 in.
Okay, so I want to be clear. I don't want
$5.
No. You still owe $2 from earlier.
I don't want to make it seem like Adam Silver is completely off base, right? There's some things that I think are just realities of life, right? Load management, I don't know how you legislate it. I don't know how David Stern would legislate it. Because if you're telling me I can't rest a guy because of injuries, and by the way, I love how Stugotz railed against load management a mere 15 minutes after saying that the U.S. should just sit everybody for this Mexico game and focus on the next one in Orlando.
Must win in Orlando.
He does not keep track of anything.
Prioritize.
He has said
it's an exhibition game in Mexico.
words before.
Yeah, the preseason.
Friendly.
It is amazing to watch.
Real time.
Real
time.
You look genuinely awed to be sitting in its presence, like not caring at all what you said 10 minutes ago.
It's that thing that you watch on TV all the time, and then you meet you're the star of your favorite show, and he does the catchphrase real time, not on purpose to do it for you, but this is just him in his natural element.
But this particular form of load management affected me. I was at the game and I was disappointed.
The prism that he's running all his takes through is how did it affect me, my gambling habit? How did all the takes are run through that filter first?
So Meadowlark Media flying a dozen of us out to Mexico City, and then
a dozen people.
Why?
I mean,
Just trying to get to the Masters.
we're working on a project.
Oh, okay.
Meadowlark Media.
How about the draft?
The draft.
Real
Vegas.
football.
Vegas.
The draft. Where did that come from?
Billy and I want to go.
We've got to pick places that we want to go over the next 2 years, and I want to go to Innings
Monaco
Fest
GP.
in Arizona.
The draft in about a month.
Stanley Cup playoffs.
Stugotz wants to go to the draft, and he wants to go to Gronk's bachelor party.
Gronk's getting married.
Now, Mojo's bachelor party, that's a fun. Grok's going to be there. It's going to be on the beach. Billy and I want to go. It's draft weekend. We were thinking about maybe hopping on a bird.
It's not a beach because it's in Vegas.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a beach.
It's called
A lot of
Encore
sand,
Beach.
no water.
Yeah.
Encore Beach Club.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you
get
go.
it. Yeah.
Why don't we
send-
join
look,
us?
let-
In the
Why not?
desert.
Yeah, let's
It's
look.
kind of a beach.
Let's negotiate here. Why don't we send 8 people to Mexico and 4 people to Vegas?
Right.
Yeah, I'm
Not
in.
12 to Mexico.
And
you
one
know?
to
Both trips.
Augusta.
There you go.
Okay, Billy and Stugotz to Mexico, Grant Wall and Whittingham to Vegas. Look out, everybody.
And I'll take the week off for load management.
There you go.
Who's going to Orlando for the must-win? I mean, anyone?
I
I'll be
mean,
there. I'm driving up.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
getting back to what it is that's happening in basketball, because Westbrook just got done saying that there is nothing better than shutting people up. And it got me to thinking, because Chris Cody yesterday said there's nothing better than just throwing mashed potatoes on the floor. So I don't know in sports what is the better feeling than nothing. Russell Westbrook is saying nothing feels better. And I feel like he's played his whole career fueled by whatever that is. It's why he never smiles.
He
Yeah.
should take his own advice and shut up.
Amin El-Hassan has many podcasts. Cinephobe is one of them. If you want him reviewing terrible music or terrible movies and seeing if you can ascertain whether or not they've gotten a fair shake or not.
This week, the 1995 film starring John Travolta and Harry Belafonte, White Man's Burden. Has anyone heard of this movie? I'm not even going to ask anyone to see it. Have you heard of this movie?
Oh, what is this?
It's a
wonderful.
movie.
He did this after Pulp Fiction?
Yes.
Wonderful.
He did it at the urging of Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino says, I think you should really do this, right? And just to give you guys
all of Quentin Tarantino's movie judgment has come into question.
The title is just great. I don't even know what the movie's about, but I love the fact that
Harry
It's about the white man's
Belafonte.
burden. I
the
mean,
white man's burden is being dissected by Cinephobe 25 years later.
Yeah. I'll give you a brief synopsis of the movie. Imagine a world where black people were the race that had all the generational wealth and opportunity, and white people were the downtrodden.
Hold on.
It's a comedy? I mean-
Whittingham, Whittingham, are you looking up the description?
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
For White Man's Burden, the 1995 classic.
This is the most racist 7 words to open a movie description. In an alternate universe, successful African Americans.
Oh, no.
Jesus.
Oh, my
Wow.
God.
Good Lord! What is this movie?
Unbelievable.
Fever dream.
To be clear, it's not a Tarantino movie.
No, I know, but he suggested that he do
Yeah,
it.
he said, "Oh, you got to do this." This is right after Pulp Fiction. Like, "Oh, you got to do this, John. You got to do this."
All right, I'll read the full thing. In an alternate universe, successful African Americans live in gated communities, while impoverished Caucasians populate crime-ridden inner-city ghettos. When African American mogul Thaddeus Thomas, played by Harry Belafonte, wrongly accuses Caucasian Louis Pinnock, John Travolta, of being a peeping Tom, Pinnock loses his job and watches as his family falls apart. In a desperate attempt to repair his life, Pinnock takes Thomas hostage and demands reinstatement at the factory where he once worked.
You gotta be fucking kidding me, man.
Roy, I'm surprised you haven't seen this one.
Really? Really?
No, because you watch every obscure movie and remember them all. I thought for sure Roy's seen
How
this
is
one.
this movie not memorable? I think Whittingham says alternate funny.
He does.
Yes.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it's a big fine.
I don't think that's a
What?
fine.
Well, he says it funny. I mean, that's a new
Alternate?
fine. Yeah.
I know that your thing now is
Saying
just
things funny, I
Yes,
mean.
I know you just point sausage fingers. You've decided.
I'm the only one who pays the fines around here.
Only one who gets fined.
you have decided that you or your last act
Could be fining people.
as a sports gesture is just to fire sausage fingers at ever.
gesture. It's a fine. It didn't come out correctly.
No, it did not. Alternate.
It's a fine for me too.
Allow me for a second, because I was wanting to tell the audience that Amin's basketball knowledge on Basketball Illuminati is on display, and his basketball knowledge is also on display on SiriusXM, because he talks about this sport uniquely. I found only in, I don't know how many, NBA Twitter has a handful of street credentialed people who really know what they're talking about when it comes to basketball inside and out, and you are among those dozen people from that world. And so I want people to know that your expertise comes from several different angles, and you love this league. You want this league and the future of this league protected, and there are some cracks showing over the last few years that make you wonder about the future, make anyone wonder about the future of the league.
Right. I mean, it just, look, earlier we were talking about Commissioner Silver, and he's done a lot of great things, right? I don't want to make it seem like, oh, this guy's an awful commissioner. He's done a lot of great things. And I've also said that David Stern was the right commissioner for when the league was where it was at that point, and Adam Silver was the right commissioner up until recently for where the league was when he took over. He did things that I think grew the game and did the right thing. But over time, it's kind of one of those things, I don't know if it's the response and the call and response, which is, well, I did this, I loosened it up over here, and people loved it. I loosened it up over here, and people loved it. Well, let me just loosen it up everywhere. I'm like, no, some places it still needs to be tight. Some places needs to be non-negotiable. Sometimes you do have to be the bad guy. I'm not, extremes are basically dangerous. David Stern was extreme at a time where we needed extremism. And then over time, his extremism became obsolete because the league didn't need that anymore. It needed someone to loosen it up a bit. Silver comes in, he loosens things up. It's like, that's exactly what we need. But then, he ends up with his own version of extremism, which is where we are right now. And I think we need someone to tighten it up. Hopefully it's him.
That's general, okay? Because I want to do specifics with you. Because we've lived long enough now, Stugotz. David Stern has died. His leadership over the league brought in a new realm of commissioner. I'm in charge of the bosses. They are not in charge of me. Goodell, it's an illusion. He is working for those owners. David Stern, the owners felt like they feared him.
Everybody. Is there a commissioner out there that's like that in any sport?
So basketball goes from that as the leadership, because that was genuine leadership. He was protecting the league, and he did not mind being an asshole. His right-hand man comes up through the system, and he's not like him at all. He is new wave NBA. He comes up through those offices, Stugotz, not unlike how Eric Spoelstra comes up through the Heat offices. Right. He learned at Stern's knee. He was Stern's trusted advocate, and furthermore, a bridge somehow between players and Stern, who ruled on high with the owners and their kingdom. Adam Silver gets tough guy. Look, he got rid of Sterling. Easiest move in the world, given how badly those owners wanted him out. He just went out there, did the thing, got rid of him. Boom, stamps his leadership. Holy shit, this guy is taking over the leadership from David Stern. And since then, giving more and more and more to the players. More and more and more to the players in a way Stern never would have. Stern would have lorded over them. Right. And in doing that, the league now finds itself over the next 5 years at an important point with young people. It's future customers in a place that the NBA hasn't monetized yet. Popular, I can't believe what he just said, that there is somebody calling his radio show saying, I follow all of you insiders and eat up every morsel of the information, but the games themselves don't matter to me. That's crazy.
Well, the transaction, we've been saying this for a while, the transaction seems to be more important, seems to be more exciting to fans in general.
My point is, what have you traded long-term because of the short-term satisfaction of that? You are absolutely right that, yes, we fed that. And now what? Now that you need them to watch the game, but they're just addicted to the transaction, the story. They're just addicted to what's on Instagram, their social media brands. As LeBron rockets out of the league and goes Hollywood to see if he can own one of these things in the future through Hollywood, because he's realized, holy shit, in a salary cap sport, I was being held down by these people.
So how do you make the games more relevant, more important in a way that young people are going to want to watch the games the way they follow the transactions?
This is how. By not having a media that's relegated to just reporting transactions.
Agreed.
Right? And this is why, right? When there are no personal connections, when everything is just through a Zoom meeting, in terms of that's how I make connections, and then all the people I know as a reporter are the agents and some front office people who are using me for very specific reasons, right? Just to get information and get information. If that's the relationship, that's the reporting that comes out. And I'm of the belief people will consume what you tell them is important to consume. right? If we tell them, oh, transactions are in. Oh, my God, look, oh, here comes our big newsbreaker. What do we have the latest? Well, the Eagles are talking about doing. Like, that's what they're going to think is important. As opposed to if we tell them, oh, what a game, you missed it, and this is what happened, and this is the thought process the players had before this, and the storytelling matters. It matters in a way that I don't think people understand, that a lot of the myth building of Michael Jordan didn't happen because we were worried about who the Bulls were going to draft or who they were going to sign or pick up in free agency. It was based about Michael Jordan and the way he overcame this and the way he hit this shot and and the practices and punching Steve Kerr and all. That's all the storytelling that you get when you have reporters who have access, multiple reporters, not one guy who works as a mouthpiece for somebody. Because that's the other part of this is you got, Chris, you brought up the example of someone coming on a podcast and telling a story and say that's where people are getting it from. But that's kind of really, really curated because it's one lane coming out from the player. Player doesn't go on a podcast to embarrass himself. On a podcast to tell the story that makes him the hero of his story. Unless he's someone like Rex Chapman who had a huge downfall and is very open about it, or Steven Jackson who's made mistakes and is very open about it. But most people aren't like that. They go on a podcast and I'm going to put my best foot forward. That's why you need reporting, because the reporters in a not in a perfect world, but in another time, you might have a relationship and then you might write something that upsets the person you have a relationship with and have to have the explanation with them. Like, I'm not your PR guy. I get to know you so that I can get to know the real you and write real stuff, but sometimes it's not going to be complimentary to you. But we don't have that anymore. Now what we have is basically PR. Everyone's doing PR.
And the bigger thing, Stugotz, to me, if it gets lost here, if you're at all thinking about the future leadership of the league and what it's going to be grown into with tomorrow's fans, is good God, these young players are good. Like, what you're watching as a skill level is like, holy shit, these people are so good at basketball.
But from a fan standpoint, you also have a fear that the guy that you're starting to root for, John Morant, is not going to be in Memphis for more than 5 years.
But why do you care about 5 years from now? We live now. Kareem got traded from Milwaukee, right?
But Bulls fans spent a decade and a half never worrying about Michael Jordan going somewhere else. There's something to be said for that. Plus, they also knew when they went to the arena, Michael Jordan was going to play basketball.
How long did Sixers fans know they were going to see Charles Barkley play? How long?
Well, I feel like at the beginning, if you asked them that at the beginning, Amin, just based on the times and the rules at the time, I would say, probably 10, 12 years, something like that.
But shit happens is my point.
But we can't say that players having agency is a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing.
Nor can we say that Adam Silver is the reason why this is happening necessarily.
No.
The decision happened under David Stern's watch. He hated it. He came out and said it, but that was the landmark moment that allowed players to start thinking about their future. Also, NBA owners had their chance with longer-term maximum contract extensions. They didn't want to give out 6-year deals anymore because of the albatrosses that some of them signed. So they paved their own way towards this, and I always thought that you always think that players at some point were going to figure out, there's like 18 of us that create the value in this sport. We are the ones that matter here. I think this trajectory was always inevitable. The question is, at what point does the media, does the league buck and realize, we have a fan problem, we have an engagement problem, and people need to be interested in our games, and we need to create reasons for fans to be interested in our games, not just highlights.
But how is Zion Williamson helping that situation? What's going on there? Because he's probably going to play one season for New Orleans. He's going to end up in New York or somewhere else. It's like, so how is that good for the game? That you have a guy who doesn't want to be in your city, barely plays for your city, he's not getting himself into shape, and then he goes and plays somewhere else and flourishes there. How is that good for New Orleans? That's only good for the fan base that gets Zion Williamson.
But the answer cannot be obligating Zion to be a place where he doesn't want to be.
So this is my thing, Stugotz. The reason why is because, so let's take Utah, for example, with Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
Utah's a good team. Been to the playoffs 5 years in a row. Winning the equivalent of 50 games every year, right? Trying to break through. What do we talk about when we talk about Utah more than anything? Is Donovan Mitchell going to the Knicks? It's trade season's over.
Right.
He's under contract.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we talk about as opposed to, whoa, Donovan Mitchell's really good. That's the problem. Once we went down this path where the conversation became about the transaction, it's not that the players leave, because players have always left. Players have always been traded. Players have always left in free agency, or at least in the last 30 years in the modern NBA. That's not the point. The point is, we are so focused on what's going to happen next to Donovan Mitchell that we don't give a fuck about what's happening right now. And that's problematic. And the reason why we are like that as a fan base is because we were taught that by the media, who instead of saying Donovan Mitchell's doing this incredible stuff, the number one story is, well, there are sources out of New York that I was talking about this with Spencer Checkers, who does radio in Salt Lake City. And I can't remember the writer for Newsday in New York, but he said every month or so, the guy comes out with another thing about sources say the Knicks would be really interested in Donovan Mitchell. Like, well, no shit. Like, I would think that 30 teams in the NBA are interested in Donovan Mitchell because he's a really good player. But when you make that the focus and the sole purpose of your reporting, and it's not just one guy, it's across the league, local and national, then what we're telling our consumers is, I don't mind with all this shit that's happening on the court. What you should be focused on is what's going to happen next summer.
But I mean, don't we also have evidence to back up that that's what fans care about?
Just because that's what they care about doesn't mean that's what we should give them.
But that's the media in 2022 is give the people what they want. We now have data to prove that a really nice profile of Donovan Mitchell does not play as well with the number of clicks as is he going to the Knicks. Like, that will generate, I would presume, tons more Twitter engagement, other social engagement, and reading engagement on websites. And that's how things are measured.
Do you feel like, okay, so Russell Wilson got traded to the Broncos, right? Russell Wilson, one of the game stars, great player, Super Bowl champ, playing on a team that's lagging, right? The Seahawks were going down. I don't feel like, I know there were a couple of times where we're like, well, Russell Wilson might get traded to Chicago, whatever. But other than those blips, because something came out, for the most part, people just talked about Russell Wilson playing. We didn't really talk about where he's going next, to the point where he gets traded to the Broncos, and everyone's like, oh my God, well, that happened. Because NFL reporting, I feel like, is much more, or NFL coverage, I should say reporting, NFL coverage is much more focused on what's on the field.
Their games are more meaningful, too, though. I mean, they are.
Okay,
I mean, there's 17 of them. So.
Stugotz, you've arrived here. I understand. You've arrived here to complain about all of the things about basketball. And you just got done saying that there's something to be said for a guy who stays someplace the whole time, while a couple of hours ago mocking that Freddie Freeman and Matt Ryan were leaving Atlanta, and fans needed to get over it. Yeah. What Amin is speaking to that is interesting to me is, what have you traded in the short term for what he's talking about, which is what your customers care about? Because as a business, what your customers care about only matters to you insofar as you can monetize it. That's what caring represents in this business. What do you care about? I'll give you what you care about. It's not like we've got a different interest in the media. It's clicks. It is, how can we give you the superficial way to just get your eyes over here? And it's not with a long-form piece about who Donovan Mitchell really is. But in the long-form storytelling of these people, you humanize them and you turn them into not transactions. And football, we can't miss the games. The games, the customer cares deeply about the games, has never stopped caring about the games, and the other storytelling doesn't matter as much. It's what the philosophical difference is between these leagues. Football is like, you're all disposable, except just give me the 12 quarterbacks. Just give me the 12 guys, and everybody else, none of you matter at all. You're just uniformed, regional pride, sis boom bah, here are the flyovers. Let's take $5 million taxpayer money and honor soldiers on a weekend Sunday. That's the new religion. Basketball has traded some of that over the last 5 years of this player empowerment. It doesn't show up as, oh, I don't like that the players have power. This is how it shows up when the players take over and the customer just finds the reasons for, I don't want to watch that anymore.
I think what's happening is erosion. It's not a wholesale cutting out. It's just little by little. You do, okay, now we don't have people in the locker rooms. All right, little by little it gets eaten away until you are a house that's standing on a toothpick.
A brand is standing on a toothpick. You're an individual brand that's looking out for yourself and how you can monetize your story through the media without helping the media tell your story.
Now, to Whitty's point, some of that ain't the league's fault. Some of that is just that's life, right? Like, so for instance, the idea that load management. I don't know what David Stern would have done with load management because Stugotz, all I got to do is at any given time, every player in the league is hurt. They play, but it's like, I mean, I could say, yeah, my arthritic condition in my knee is really acting up today and I can't go. I have back spasms.
Make the games more important.
That's one way to do it. That's one way to do it is to say, shave the number of games that we have. And I know, Kevin Arnovitz has written about this and Tom Haberstro's written about this about like,
Oh, we forgot again.
It's Wednesday.
God.
We forgot again. How did we forget again?
He makes everyone so much happier, Mad Dog. Like
Stephen A. is
Molly
glowing.
is glowing. Stephen A.
He
is
looks
glowing.
so good. He
Yeah.
looks 15 years younger. Both of them do.
I was telling Stugotz this the other day. I said, you know what's underrated about it is forget about the sound. Just look at their faces. The one who's not talking, I love watching. The one who's not talking,
the best.
because
Yes.
their facial reactions are A1. Look at Doggy right now. See how he's tilting his head? Like, okay, I see where you're going.
He's
with it.
having so much fun.
That squint.
Can't believe
Well, he's
older
wondering
than
where he's
Scott.
going, even though he knows where Stephen A. is going.
It froze.
Yes.
That sounds like, wow, he's really holding that pose. And
I can't believe how good Mad Dog
doggy.
looks. Stugotz.
Doggy.
Stugotz, he was looking so old and tired and unkempt behind the wall of pay of
Behind the wall of radio.
of satellite pay, and now he has emerged into the light with his sports opinions, and someone cares what he thinks about Havlicek. And
he's got a makeup person.
Like,
I mean.
it is like he's got a fuel tank that is and a makeup person that is filled
I would say
full of life.
most important right now is he's got a camera guy because the gestures, he needs to be followed by a camera right now. It's panning up, panning down.
Enough
I should say
serious
tilt up and a tilt
societal
down.
sports talk.
Yeah.
Billy Gill from the kitchen reports live on First Take. Next.
Doggy on a Wednesday.